everybody, and welcome to another episode of YMTGT Taps. I'm Joey Pasco.
And I'm Mythic Challenger, Big Head Joe.
That's right. Congratulations. That is so freaking cool.
I got there.
You
I
did.
got
You got there. And you've been Mythic for like 10 days or something. I don't know.
Well, they don't kick you off. That's the only reason why I still am there. Once you're, like we said in the last episode, once you hit a rank, you're locked into that rank. So I'm locked into Mythic. I got so bad. So like at one point I was like, because they put a number underneath of it when you win games. I got into the top 100 briefly, which was pretty cool. But at one point I was 999, and then I don't even know it. I lost another match, and it had some weird like 0.098214% or something. I didn't even know what it meant. But fortunately, I didn't lose another match to find out how much worse it can get. I crawled back up, and I'm like hovering around 500 now. But
I mean, yeah, I know you you posted the screenshot that you were 84th. So
yeah, okay.
You know, that was the high number I saw.
That's probably the peak. Yeah, that's probably as high as I got. And speaking of people who won't reach such heights, nah. Is this pod safe? Nah. But Alex Bertoncini is banned for life. Bye.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are pretty happy to hear that. It's a sad story, but I guess if he wasn't sad. Well, sorry. It's sad at some point. It's this person who I believe has a lot of talent but can't stop cheating.
Yeah, it's sad that he has a compulsion, but like, you know, look, how many chances do you get? You know what I mean? Look, I don't want the guy to fail at life, but whatever he succeeds at, he's going to probably succeed at it by cheating. So whatever. I have very little sympathy, especially with how like much I got behind him at first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how I kind of went to bat for him when everybody was ganging up on him. And like, you know, to feel like, you know, just to be deceived by someone who deceived everyone. But to feel personally deceived makes it twice as, makes it hurt twice as much, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
So no sympathy here. No sympathy for the devil. Now, I have a question, though, which I don't think has ever actually been addressed, or at least I have no idea. But is the banned player list for Paper, does it apply to Arena too? I'm assuming it does, but Moto's banned list is different, right?
Actually, I don't know. I would think that it would be the same thing. But do you remember? I don't remember when I set up my Arena account whether or not I associated it with a DCI number. Did you? I mean, you've set yours up. You set yours up recently. No, I didn't
set mine up with a DCI number either. You're right.
Yeah,
okay,
so I feel like you could presumably just create an account under any random name and just play. I mean, unless it's going to qualify you specifically through Arena for an event.
Yeah, I guess by the time it gets to that point, then they got to get your name, and then they're going to say no thank you.
Yeah. Now, you know, whatever event you won or qualified for has an extra slot because you're not coming if you're banned, you know.
Right. Anyway, let's move on from that because don't have to talk about him ever again. Awesome. So we still are going to talk about Ravnica Allegiance spoilers today. But we got this article just a couple hours ago, and I was like, oh, we got more stuff we got to talk about. I want to talk about spoilers. But this is good stuff. So, they just put out the MTG Arena State of the Beta, January 2019. I don't want to spend too much time on this. But they're doing duplicate protection now. So basically, if you're cracking packs, like not in an event, if you open a rare or mythic that you already had 4 copies of, the system's going to replace it with a different card of the same rarity from that set. And then if you've collected all the rares or mythic rares, each one has its own tier. So it's not like it's going to replace a rare with a mythic rare or mythic rare with a rare. Mm-hmm. If you have all the mythic rares and you open a mythic rare for that set, you'll get 40 gems. If you have all the rares from a set and you open a rare, you get 20 gems.
Yeah.
With limited, it's just normal for the actual event, but then when you're done the event, it'll convert stuff. It'll only convert rares and mythic rares to gems. It doesn't actually swap them for another card because at that point you chose that card,
Yeah.
So it swaps them for gems in limited, which is pretty cool. And then the same thing goes for the individual card rewards. So like when you get the card rewards from your daily win rewards, if you already have 4 copies of that card, it's going to be replaced with
like another
rares.
card you don't own, basically.
I don't know if it doesn't say that it's going to do the same kind of swap.
Okay.
But it says if you receive a rare, mythic rare that you already have 4 copies of, the card will be replaced with gems. Is all it says.
Okay.
So so I don't know what that's all about.
Right.
But anyway, so that's
at least
the
it
deal
has
with that.
some value. That's the whole thing. Is like if you opened your 5th copy, it had. Well, I can't say it had 0 value because there was that strange vault thing.
Well, the vault still exists.
Yeah, I did see that it still exists, but I
opened it once. I did open it once.
Oh wow!
I got to that point.
That's kind of crazy. You've been playing that much. That's awesome.
Been playing a lot.
Yeah, but yeah. So the vault, it seemed kind of like it had basically no value if it went into the vault, because of how small the actual value was.
Right.
So this is a huge improvement. So that way, since every mythic you open in Dominaria is Multani,
it is. It literally. I mean,
you said
I have
that,
3 of them.
So Joe posted that on Twitter the other day in a conversation with someone, and I had to laugh because I think I've opened 4 Multani and never opened a Teferi, or like why am I getting so many Multanis?
Did you see the picture I posted though?
I don't remember.
I got a Teferi in one of my individual card rewards.
Oh wow, nice! I thought you opened it in a pack.
No, it was just like that was my weekly. The pack was my weekly.
Okay,
was one of my weekly packs, and then just the random card that you get for winning your 5th match of the day, just was a Teferi. I was like,
that's
all right,
pretty cool. It would suck for me because I have 4, but I guess not anymore. I'd have opened 40 gems, I suppose. I don't know how that would work, but I guess
it's interesting.
See. But yeah, so that's big news. Just came out, like you said, a couple hours ago as of the time of recording.
Yes.
And
one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
From this announcement, and this is a big deal. Ranked. So first of all, January 31st is the start of the next preseason. So we're not in season 1 yet. We are officially going to have preseason 2 before we have season 1. We don't know if after preseason 2 it's going to be season 1 or preseason 3.
Right.
But we're still in preseasons here. So preseason 2 starts January 31st. And starting January 31st, best of 3 constructed will be added to the ladder. So
awesome.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I still feel like best of 1 is the way to go if you're grinding to Mythic. But once you hit Mythic and you want to actually do some hardcore testing, you can hit that best of 3, and I think that's kind of awesome.
The main thing is having the choice. That's what's important to me, is that you have the option.
Agreed.
Make them both available. And I think you and I will have a big discussion on best of 1 in a future episode.
Sure. And
we can go further into that. But the choice is the important part, at least as far as I can tell.
Yeah. I think it's great. Now we just need to have sealed added to the ladder. I don't care about best of 1 or best of 3 for that, but I would like to see sealed added to the limited ladder because I'm better at it and I could get out of gold rank 4. I'm like, the only reason why I'm not silver is because they won't bump you down. So my limited has been miserable. But anyway, last thing on this little announcement here, we have the schedule for the pre-release for Magic Arena. So January 17th, which is a Thursday, actually before the midnight pre-release, which is kind of crazy.
It's this Thursday. It's
that's what I'm saying. This Thursday, literally
a few days from now.
This should come out Wednesday, right?
Tuesday or Wednesday. So it's either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, depending on how early I can get this edited.
No doubt. So y'all will hear this before then. Hopefully, download it as soon as it comes out, please. January 17th, we have Ravnica Allegiance sealed and traditional draft Ravnica Allegiance, which means best of 3. And those will be gems only. 1,500 gems to enter the traditional draft? That's a lot, it seems like. But anyway, and the sealed is 2,000 gems. That's a much better value. But those are both starting January 17th. There's going to be ranked draft on January 18th, but it's going to be Core Set 2019, which is kind of weird, but I'm probably still going to play it because I never played any of the Core Set draft, and I want to try a little bit of it. And then there's going to be a special event, January 25th, of Ravnica Block Constructed. I know Joey loves that.
Well, I can't even remember the last block that I played Block Constructed. But
I know the next block.
Yeah, I may try that. That seems like it would be fun. Yeah.
Why not, right? I mean, it sounds great. And it's like 500 gold to get in?
Yeah.
Yeah, 500 gold or 100 gems nothing. To get in?
Yeah.
Nothing, exactly. That's like, why not? I've been playing the constructed event, just the normal, non-ranked constructed event, because if you throw burn into that thing, you get some good wins. I've hit 7 wins on that pretty consistently. So you just wind up grinding gold and rares. As I've been doing that a lot, actually. I did that pretty much all afternoon, waiting for you to be ready to record, just sitting there grinding the constructed event. Finally, Ravnica Allegiance is going to be ranked draft February 1st. So I guess they'll do a week of the, or I guess it's almost like 2 weeks of the M19. And then Ravnica Allegiance will hit ranked draft February 1st. So I know Scott Martin was wondering on Twitter why Ravnica Allegiance wasn't ranked straight away. It's not, but it will be pretty soon after. So that's good news. So next thing is for the Ravnica Allegiance pre-release. I didn't do Guilds of Ravnica pre-release, but they had download codes for I think it was for a free sealed event on Arena for the last one. This time around, in your pre-release pack, you're going to have a code for a traditional draft on Arena. It's 1 code per account, so, hoarding them from people doesn't do you any good unless you want to give them out to your friends who play. And then you don't even need to buy any packs for this. They're doing a new code called, it's Play Allegiance. It's just look it up how to spell it. But it's Play Allegiance, and you get 3 free packs, right?
Yeah, right, and that's just how it was for Ravnica too. It was Play Ravnica, and you got 3 free packs of Guilds of Ravnica. So presumably it's the same deal.
I hope they keep doing that because I like that. I like the little freebies.
I mean, it's just 3 packs. It's really, it's no monetary value to them. It's just promotional value, and you make players happy and want to keep playing, and like, oh hey, I got free cards. You never know how many people are like kind of maybe only bouncing into the program occasionally, but if they can get free cards, then they're gonna show up more. So I think that's a great promotion to have, especially it promotes your new set. Also, it's not only promoting Arena, because now you're opening packs from a set that maybe you don't have any other packs from. And now you're like, you know what? This looks cool. I want to open more packs. Here's some money. So
I like opening packs. Yeah. I do. And that's actually a poll that I had put up on our Twitter, like, I guess a week ago, maybe. I don't know, a couple days ago. I was trying to figure out, because me and Mike were having this conversation on Twitter briefly, Mike Flores. Mm-hmm. He was talking about how he just uses his gold and just rips packs with it. And he's like, is this bad? Is this dumb? Is this terrible? Not really, okay? So I put the question out there to everyone. What do you use your gold for? Do you use it to crack packs? Do you save it up and use every 5,000, cash it in for a free draft? Or do you hoard it and just see what happens? Have you not decided what to do with your gold yet? The results are we have 36% of the people use their gold to crack packs, 53% use it for drafts, and 11% hoard. I crack packs now. How about you?
I was kind of doing a mix. I can't really say that I have any sort of strategy. At the moment, I'm hoarding, but it was only because I wanted to open packs of Ravnica Allegiance. Like, I wanted all my gold to be able to spend it on Ravnica Allegiance. So I was just waiting for that to release. So I don't know what my plan will be once, Thursday hits, when I can start spending gold on Ravnica Allegiance. Especially, at first I'm definitely going to I want to at least experience the limited environment for the pre-release, which is kind of, that's...
But you can't use gold for the pre-release anyway.
Right, so I'll just use gems, whatever. But my point is I'll still at least use, I'll at least experience the limited environment that way. But as far as, what I decide to do after the pre-release, I think I'm skewing to the idea of just using the gold on packs, because I realize that when I sit down and have time to play Arena, the thing that I want to do most is play Standard. I want to play Constructed. And the reason I'm playing Limited is just so that I can make sure I have the cards I need for Constructed. And I think, after a little bit of, some frustrating events with Limited, I realized, why am I spending my time on Limited when it's not really giving me a lot more value? I don't know if it's giving me any more value in terms of,
sure.
If I were to just crack the packs open or enter an event and not do very well, and I just got to pick which bad cards I opened.
Right.
I'm spending time. Like, here I am, instead of being able to spend this time playing Constructed, which is what I ultimately want to do, I'm spending hours playing Limited, not really enjoying myself unless I really, kind of lucked into a good deck.
Right.
Most of the time, I'm going to say 70% of the time, I have either a mediocre or terrible deck, and it's just not fun to play. So this is just my enjoyment of Limited. It's just not really there. So
sure.
So I realized, I'm kind of wasting my time. So I think I'm gonna start cracking the gold, or using the gold to crack packs and not play as much Limited. But we'll see. 2 weeks from now, I might have a completely different answer.
For sure. Well, here's my logic on it. And I actually think you should use your gold for packs, unless you love Limited. If you love Limited, play Limited.
Right, because
I'm
you're
not
getting
telling
value.
anyone.
Yeah,
right. Because that's part of your enjoyment of the game. Obviously, the most important thing is that what you're doing is the thing you enjoy in this game. I bought some packs of M19, with gems, and that didn't feel good at all. Don't do that. Don't buy packs with gems, unless you really need to just grind to a wild card or something. But here's what I've realized: when you enter a draft, you pay however much gold, right? You spend your 5,000 gold, you get 3 packs. If you do really well, you get the guaranteed 2 packs at the very end, so you get 5 packs. And again, if you're just playing Limited, those packs are pretty much worthless. But if you're a Constructed player, those packs give you 2 rares and 2/6 of a wild card and 2/6 of an uncommon wild card and a mythic rare or rare wild card and an uncommon or an uncommon wild card. If you spend that 5,000 gold on 5 packs, you get 5/6 of a rare wild card and 5/6 of an uncommon wild card guaranteed.
Right.
And with rare wild cards being the rarest thing on Magic Arena,
well, they're not as rare. It's just you need them more. You need more of them because mythic rare is still more rare than regular rare.
Well, right, but I don't know. I've opened 2 or 3 mythic rare wild cards from cracking packs and maybe 1 rare wild card. But anyway, I feel like, how many rare wild cards do you have currently in your collection?
I think I have 2 right now.
2?
Yeah.
I have 0. How many mythic?
I think I have 2 mythic, or 1 or 2 mythic right now.
Sure. I have 7 mythic rare wild cards, 0 rare wild cards, and I feel like I'm always desperate for rare wild cards. So that's my goal now, is to crack packs to generate rare wild cards.
Yeah, and I haven't been playing any Limited events. I haven't really been spending any gold. So that's why I don't have any wild cards right now. I'm just hoarding the gold. Sure. I'm playing I'm doing the quests and building up a cache of gold. I don't know how much gold I have right now, but that's basically the way I've been playing, and I'm going to. For sure. So presumably I will have a bunch of wild cards, or at least more than I have, once I start spending all that gold on some events or packs or whatever.
Right. Ultimately, it's goal dependent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Do what you like, do what you enjoy, but keep that math in mind, because if you need the wild cards, cracking packs might be the way to go. That's all I'm saying.
I hadn't actually thought about it that way, but you're right. Because if you're entering an event, you only get credit for what packs you open after the event.
The prize packs, right?
Not the events, packs. Not the packs you open in the event. So, yeah, and I say credit, I mean that kind of little, I don't know, what do you want to call it?
The dial towards the wild cards,
exactly.
Or whatever.
So, yeah, that's a good point. So, you make me feel even better about my decision to play more or open more packs rather than playing limited. But
for sure.
But that's my personal, preference.
A lot of people will tell you, because they enjoy limited, that you're wasting value by opening those packs. But again, goal dependent. If your goal is to get those rare wild cards, you're not wasting any value at all. You're gaining value.
And I think
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think that's a Magic player mentality, which is true or has been true for years as we've had paper Magic, where you want to get as much value out of the pack as you can.
Right.
But to me, I think it's a different thing with Arena. You have to kind of change your mentality from I can't open sealed product. I have to use it in another way before I open it. I can't just open it to open it.
Right. And by the way, it looks like Rivals of Ixalan is the smallest set size. If anyone wants to abuse that, get to 4 copies of everything. So just some information. Anyway, let's get on to these spoilers, because I'm so excited about spoilers. When's the last time we done? Oh man, I love this. Anyway, sorry. Why don't you go ahead and start, because I'm got all this stuff here, but I want you to start. Go ahead.
All right, so we each came up with our list of our 10 favorite cards from Ravnica Allegiance, and I think our criteria was basically, if you are excited about this card, like it didn't really have to meet any certain kind of criteria, like, oh, I think this is going to be the best card in Limited or Commander or anything like that. It was just kind of, what are our favorites, what looks cool, and that's really it. So we'll do this like, I'll say my number 10, you say your number 10,
yeah,
kind of thing. But here's the thing. So now you mentioned the idea of possibly trying to guess each other's top 10, which I think would be fun, but I didn't put any thought into it, so I'm not prepared to guess your top 10.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll just do the thing, and then I'll let you know which ones I got right.
Okay. Oh, so you did actually come up with
I have a list, but I only used cards that weren't on my top 10. So there were probably cards that you're excited about too, but I was just like, let me see about putting another list together.
Sure.
All kinds of lists over here.
Right on. Why not? It's high fidelity.
No doubt. Only we're doubled it up.
So here's the thing. I know this sounds weird. I just want to start with my number 1 and then go to my number 10, because I know that sounds weird, but look, my number 1, I'm just going to do it. My number 1 is Hallowed Fountain. But that's not very exciting, is it?
I'm going to tear my...
So that is the card I'm most excited about. Everyone knew it was coming. But I really feel like, this is the card
to put the lands on here.
But that's really the card that I was looking forward to most, and it hasn't changed even after seeing the spoiler. I'm just really excited to get Hallowed Fountain so we can fix some freaking mana.
Got it.
In the blue-white decks. So that's my number 1, truly. But we'll go ahead and, just get that out of the way since it's not so exciting. So my number 10, speaking of blue-white and needing to fix mana, is Absorb.
Okay.
All right. A lot of people saw this. This was revealed on Christmas Day, I think. It's an old reprint from Invasion. That was a time when Joe and I don't think either of us were playing. So I've never played with or against Absorb. It's been a while since Absorb has been in Standard, and so I have really no experience with this card, but I'm excited about it because, hey, it's a counterspell and it gains life. But it's still, I think it needs to prove itself in this current metagame, in this current environment, and in this modern day. We're talking about being originally printed in 2000?
Right.
So it's only been 19 years. The game might have changed a little bit since then. So I think I'm kind of trepidatious about Absorb, but I'm sure people are going to try it. I'm going to try it, and I guess it really hinges on how aggressive the metagame is to see how well it does actually in Standard. Because right now, Sinister Sabotage is just so good. It's kind of hard to justify a card like Absorb or even Ionize over Sinister Sabotage. And it's easier to cast, like Sinister Sabotage is.
Well, I feel a little differently about Absorb than you do because I'm terrified of it. I'm serious. Like as a red player, even with the mono white deck that I'm playing, this card terrifies me because it basically counters 2 spells. Absorb says, "Oh yeah, okay, counter your lightning strike and the lightning strike you played last turn that you domed me with," and like it's just such a beating. It just sets you back so far. And yeah, the mana is a little more restrictive, but I feel like this is one of those cards that you're going to say right now, you're going to be like, well, I don't really know where its place is, and like 2 weeks into Standard, you're going to have 4 copies in your deck.
You might be right. The thing that's interesting right now is the reason the mana is going to work right now is because of Shocklands. So 2/3 of that life gain is likely, it's likely gone in part, or it's spent already on a Shockland.
But look, if you need to cast Sinister Sabotage turn 3, you got to pay that 2 anyway.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So like, unless you know what
unless you have another, you may have to pay that 2 anyway. I know what you're saying.
So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, but it's just going to be even better because it's going to get back to you. Now of course if you're playing Eldest Reborn or whatever, and you want to pitch whatever that 6/6 flying trample thing is.
I was going to say Doomed Traveler, but that's not the same card.
Yes. In his mind, he's a 6/6 flying trample.
Whisperer, is that who?
Yeah,
who
I think so. Yeah. Like if you want to pitch that to eventually get back with Eldest Reborn, then Sinister Sabotage. It all depends on your goals. But that gain 3 against any of the aggro decks, like counter their spell, hard counter, and gain 3, which basically negates one of their attacks or one of their spells. I think it's a really good card, and I'm terrified of it.
And I think that makes sense. The way I saw someone tweet, like, people are literally playing Sinister Sabotage and Revitalize in the same deck. Like,
right.
And you're questioning whether or not Absorb is any good, and it's like, well, that's a good point.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, it's the same. Both cards on one card.
Yep,
that sounds really good.
It's good.
Then maybe you could put some creatures in your deck with the other 4 slots you open up.
Oh, good call.
I know you won't though. Are we good? Are we just move to the next one?
Yeah. Let's go to your number 10.
So before I start my number 10, I just want to say, like, in general about my list, like on Arena, I play mono white and mono red. Those are the decks. I could swing into Boros. I'm interested in trying other things, but right now that's what I have. So my list of cards that excites me, it's probably going to be full of cards that improve those decks, or it's going to be full of cards that would comprise a deck that has a better matchup against the decks that the white and red decks are weakest against. Just a general rule, and we're going to get into this. So my number 10 is Footlight Fiend, and I actually am not really certain I like this card as much as I wanted to just talk about it.
Okay.
Because I wanted to talk about it versus Fanatical Firebrand, and I think we've had this conversation before. Like most of the times, like I always wonder, like, is this kind of card where you get to attack and then it dies and you get to ping? Is this better than Firebrand where you get to attack or ping, and sometimes you attack with Firebrand and then they burn it and then you don't get any damage out of it? So at least, so there's kind of, there's a tension there. And like, do you want to run both? Like most of the time when you're playing the red deck, you play turn 1 Firebrand and you swing when you're on the play.
Right.
In the mirror, they play their Firebrand after that, and then they kill your Firebrand. So it's like, if you moved away from the wizard sub-theme of the deck, like maybe you got rid of Gitu Lava Runner, I don't know why you would do that, but if you did that, both cards might be good, and maybe those 2 cards plus Cavalcade of Calamity, I don't know. I don't think Cavalcade of Calamity is any good, just spoilers. I don't think it's good. It's not on my list. It's a terrible top deck. It doesn't really do anything on an empty board.
And that's just to kind of, we should probably read some of the cards that we're talking about.
Sure, yes. Footlight Fiend is a black or red hybrid. It's a creature type devil. It's 1/1. When it dies, deal 1 damage to any target. That's the Footlight Fiend there. Cavalcade of Calamity is a 1 and a red enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with 1 or less power attacks, it deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker that it's attacking, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. So if you're attacking a player, you can't also damage the planeswalker. Does that sound right to you? Like if I attack you with one of my 1-drops or 1/1s, I can't say I'm attacking you, but I'm going to do a damage to your Teferi.
Right, you have to choose the attack, and then the damage goes through to whatever you're attacking.
Exactly. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Couple points. A tapped Firebrand will survive a fiery cannonade, which is important and relevant. But a tapped Footlight Fiend gets a point of targeted damage in off of the cannonade. Plus, Firebrand gives you the option of pinging, where essentially your opponent chooses where you ping with Footlight.
Right.
But Footlight gets to ping on the way out if you have to sacrifice it to something. Like if they have Eldest Reborn, you can sacrifice the Footlight Fiend and ping them, where you can't do that with the Firebrand. But the most important thing is that all of these cards have to have F alliteration. That's the most important thing with cards that are 1/1 and deal 1 on the way out.
It certainly feels like it.
I hate you so much. Go to the next card.
No, just to weigh in quickly, I think the Firebrand is better. The haste is a huge thing there for me. Because,
that's true too. I didn't even think about the haste. Yep, you're right.
I mean, that's the biggest difference between the two cards, I think. And then, of course, how the damage gets allocated, when it happens. Like you said, you're giving your opponent a lot of control on how you use that damage, because they can say, all right, I'll kill your Footlight Fiend. Okay, you hit me, and now I'll play an X1.
Right.
But they can't really do that so much. I mean, I guess they have some control over hitting your Firebrand when it's tapped, so you can't deal damage to anything. But I don't know. It feels to me like the Firebrand is still the clear pick above Footlight Fiend.
I think so too, but it's nice to have options.
Sure. No, and I think it's worth considering for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, so my number 9 is Kaya's Wrath.
Okay.
This is a sorcery. It is black, white. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you controlled that were destroyed this way. This is a rare, and I think everyone was expecting a 4-mana Wrath in the set. We probably should have seen it coming that it was going to be an Orzhov Wrath rather than an Azorius Wrath, because we weren't going to get Supreme Verdict back.
No.
Kaya's Wrath, I'm a little bit torn about this card. I have to say, like, when I saw it, I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I guess it was a bittersweet reveal, because I wanted the 4-mana Wrath, but I also wanted to just play blue-white in Standard, and then I saw this and thought, well, now I have to spend all my wild cards on the Orzhov lands and the Dimir lands, and so it's it's pulling me into Esper instead of blue-white, and I don't know, maybe blue-white's going to be playable, but it feels like the question will be, why aren't you just playing Esper when you can get access to this 4-mana Wrath? This is huge. We haven't had a 4-mana Wrath like this that wasn't somehow conditional. We have Settle the Wreckage, but you're giving your opponent card advantage. You're giving them mana advantage in a lot of cases. You're also allowing them to play around it very easily by just attacking with, 1 creature or 2 when they have a board full of threats. So that was a very conditional 4-mana Wrath. This one is unconditional. The kind of extra feature of this card about gaining life equaling to the number of creatures you controlled that were destroyed is kind of funny to me, because I'm like, that's never happening. Like, I mean, not in the decks I play. I'm sure there's going to be, a great Orzhov deck, but I'm like, that's not upside. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That means zero.
Like, destroy
to
all creatures.
Like, right. it's flavor text. Like, it really has no effect on the game, because if I've got a creature on the board, then I probably am blocking with it and letting it die before I Wrath. Like, I'm going to make my opponent overcommit, or, something. I'm going to get use out of that creature rather than just, gaining 1 life, right? Because if I have a creature on board. So I don't think that's going to come up very often for me in the kinds of decks I play, which, in this case, very likely to be Esper. But it's still an exciting card. I'm still excited to see it and try it. So that's how it landed on my list.
No doubt. And I'm not excited to see it, but I'm also not that scared of this card as the mono white player because I've got the Adanto Vanguard, I've got the Dauntless Bodyguard, I've got the Hunted, whatever the card we just said earlier that I forgot already. Doomed.
You mean Hunted Witness?
Hunted Witness.
Yeah.
We said Doomed Traveler before.
Yeah, we did because we were talking
different
about
cards,
Doom
same
Whisperer.
kind of concept. No flyer, but yeah.
And there's a ton more of those in the set with Afterlife. So it's funny.
Right.
This Kaya's Wrath card is less impressive by the second as you remind me all these other things.
I'm more scared. No, honestly, like I'm more scared of Settle the Wreckage in my deck than anything else because Settle the Wreckage exiles.
Yeah.
You know,
well, blue-white it is then.
Yeah.
No, I think these are really good points because everybody's excited for the Wrath, and there's a lot of...
And they should be.
Yeah. But there's a lot of downside to it, or I don't want to say downside or drawback, but there are a lot of reasons that it might not be as powerful as a lot of 4-mana sweepers in the past.
Right.
The creatures that are around, Adanto Vanguard doesn't die, Dauntless Bodyguard protects a creature, the Afterlife mechanic, the Hunted Witness, right? Like,
well, we don't know how many
stuff.
of the Afterlife cards are actually going to be standard playable. But
Sure, but I'm sure there's going to be some of them. So,
Sure.
these cards, and then just that mana cost, black, white. So here's my thing. I'm talking about playing this in Esper, and so on turn 3, I'm supposed to be able to produce blue, white for Absorb, and then turn 4, black, white. Like, it's just... Or even blue, colorless for Sinister Sabotage. Like,
right.
This is a tall order. What am I? I'm going to be a 10 from my shock lands, and you won't have attacked me at all. I'm like, well, at least I cast Absorb in Kaya's Wrath, right? Like, I'm just a 10 because of my lands. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a cost. It's a heavy cost to trying to get this mana to work.
My doctor said my lands. Sorry. Stupid. I'm fired from the podcast. Next week, join Joey Pasco and Stephen Marshall as they present the continuation of YMTGT Taps, the decent version.
No, I actually like that one. All right, so what's your next card on your list?
My number 9 is Cindervines, and at first I included this card on the list as a shout out to Stephen Marshall because I saw him tweeting about it. He thinks it might be modern playable. I don't disagree with that, but my main concern here is standard, and I actually think this card will be heavily played in sideboards. It's so tough to deal with, and there's so much potential damage for just 2 mana.
What does it do?
Cindervines? Oh, I don't know. Look it up. You have the internet. No, Cindervines is a red and green. It's an enchantment. It's a rare. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervines deals 1 damage to that player. Pretty sweet. And then tap 1, sacrifice Cindervines, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Cindervines deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. Pretty heavy. I like it a lot. So, Ixalan's Binding. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, they take 1 mana to cast it, or they take 1 damage to cast it, and then you pop this in response to targets, and they got nothing. Stop bolting yourself. Stop bolting yourself. Stop bolting yourself. It's just brutal against all those like combo control decks. If you get to stick it turn 2, like that green, white, blue Gift of Paradise loopy loop deck. I don't even know what to even call it. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the Nexus of Fate deck?
Nexus of Fate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you call it the loopy loop deck?
Yeah.
I like that name better, but
or the combo decks that are running the Cackling Drakes and all that. They're just trying to cast spell to get their Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're like bolting themselves every turn to get their Arclight Phoenixes online.
Yep.
Honestly, I could actually see this card making the main deck in a best of 1 deck. Because even the white deck, that's almost all creatures, runs Conclave, Tribunal, and Legion's Landing. And Experimental Frenzy hates this card, and so do all of that deck's burn spells while we're on the topic,
History of Benalia, you can, they get 1 night out of it.
I forgot about that enchantment. Look, I play the deck, and I can't even, there's like 13, or there's like 11 targets in mine. I don't run 4 Legion's Landing. But I think I don't know if I should or not. But I run 3 because I don't like running 4 of a legendary, no matter what. Because I don't want to draw 3 of them in my opening hand. So yeah, I mean, I think this card's really good. And like I said, best of 1. Yeah, you might want to run 1 or 2 of them because they could get you a little bit of collateral damage there.
Yeah. No, so I love this card as well. I mean, I'm terrified of it, but I also love it. I mean, my entire blue-white deck, its removal is mostly based on Seal Away, and I'm casting counter spells and Blink of an Eye and Opt and thing,
Right.
So this card is definitely scary. It's kind of like a mini Eidolon of the Great Revel, and you can sacrifice it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Just gives it upside. It's like a kind of a mini, what was it, Smash to Smithereens, I think is the one that destroys an artifact and does 3 damage to the controller. This one does 2, but you can hit an enchantment.
It's Smash to Smithereens. But I'm thinking of Destructive Revelry.
Right, which is, that's more appropriate since it's red-green. So, yeah.
And it's enchantments.
Yeah, so this card I think is certainly modern playable. Even I could see the modern burn decks going a little green to kind of get an extra half of an Eidolon on the Great Revel effect.
Yeah.
And in addition...
And remember, Eidolon damages you, too.
Right, that's true. It's symmetrical. So, and this is not, yeah. So that's definitely something I've actually watched a player on coverage get locked under his own Eidolon because his opponent shot him to 2 life and he couldn't cast a spell.
I've been there before. Yeah, it's scary.
It happens. Live by the sword. Something. So I think Cindervines certainly could see play in modern and standard. It's definitely one of those cards that people can bring up as an example of design going in the direction of being designed for best of 1 because it has kind of a sideboard feel to it, but it also has a main deck application, right? So if this was only the first half, people could still play this card. You get the damage in whenever they cast a non-creature spell. Like anybody you're going to hit somebody with that. I mean, everybody's casting some amount of non-creatures. That's what I mean. Is you're going to hit them at least a little. Of course, you could board it out when you realize you're playing against a deck that really has very few non-creatures, but that's just not the case. But then you get this extra effect, which is destroying an artifact or enchantment, and that's a sideboard effect that you can just play main deck alongside this Eidolon or Eidolon effect, which I thought it was pronounced Eidolon, but I saw it is apparently pronounced Eidolon.
I will never pronounce it Eidolon. It's going to be Eidolon until the day I die.
It flows a little easier when you say Eidolon, but I'm going to try. So yeah, no, I think this card is certainly we're going to see it. We're going to see it played,
no doubt,
in standard and modern. I think people are going to try to get it into their modern burn decks. So let's see. Next up on my list is Pestilent Spirit.
Okay.
So Pestilent Spirit is a 3/2 for a black and 2 colorless. It is a rare. It is a creature spirit. Yes. It has Menace and Death Touch, and instant and sorcery spells you control have Death Touch. Any amount of damage they deal to a creature is enough to destroy it. So I just think this is such a cool design. It's very elegant, very flavorful, kind of like giving your burn spells Death Touch. I just think it's like I'm surprised it hasn't happened before. That's kind of...
I think it has, actually, but I'm not sure what card it... Well, I could not tell you what card, and I'm not going to look it up.
Okay, it's possible we missed it in the time that we weren't playing, but I think I love this idea.
There's been some card that gives your spells Death Touch.
I kind of feel like you might be right.
I feel like it might be one of the gods from, like, the Born of the Gods, all that Theros block. But I might be wrong. I don't know. But anyway, I feel like there was, but I'm excited to see this effect again. It is a cool effect.
Yeah, and I just think it's just I love the creature. You have a 3/2 with evasion, and then you're presumably playing this with burn spells because I don't really know what other spells you want to give Death Touch. And
blocking this creature is the worst.
Yeah, you have to block with 2 creatures at least.
With 2 creatures that are going to die, and then, if you block with enough to kill this, they can just burn spell one of the creatures.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting effect, and I think it's I don't know. I'm really excited to see how people work with it in standard, and maybe more, but I think standard is the most likely scenario here.
I think it'll see play, definitely. I definitely think it'll see play. I like it. Okay, so my number 8 is Benthic Biomancer. Probably surprising to you, but the first deck I really played on Magic Arena was the blue-green Merfolk deck because it was like the strongest of the precons.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little bit of experience jamming that deck. This deck really needs I don't know what the name of the card is, the blue-green Shockland. Desperately needs that card.
Breeding Pool?
Breeding Pool, there it is. Okay. Really needs Breeding Pool, so that's a good card to come with the set. But Benthic Biomancer, I think this is the kind of card the deck needs to be more competitive in Standard. Because some decks run the Seafloor Oracle, which is a 4-drop. Oh, I guess I should read Benthic Biomancer.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what it did.
Yeah, Benthic Biomancer is 1 blue. It's a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard Mutant Turtle. Not a turtle. It has a blue and 1. A blue and 1, adapt 1. When adapt 1 says if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then the second ability is whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Benthic Biomancer, draw a card, then discard a card. So it doesn't have to be from the adapt ability. It's just whenever it gets counters placed on it.
Right.
You get to draw a card, discard a card. So some of the decks, some of the Merfolk decks run Seafloor Oracle, which is a 2/3 for 2 blue and 2, and whenever a Merfolk you control deals damage to an opponent, draw a card. So some of them kind of run that card at the top of their curve as sort of a bad bidet of Thassa effect. Mm-hmm. I think that was what that card was called.
At least of Thassa, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. At least, my subpar fish deck on Arena ran that card at the top of the curve just to kind of draw into something to end the game.
Right.
But there's lots of ways in the blue-green Merfolk deck to get +1/+1 counters on a card besides the adapt. You can turn 1 this, and then you can turn 2 adapt or cast the Deeproot Champion, and then you can turn 3 cast the Deeproot Champion, cast Kumena's Speaker, get more counters, just keep hitting these counters. But the most important thing to remember is that once the creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, the adapt ability doesn't do anything, but it can still be activated. So if you pay for adapt in a competitive environment and your creature has counters on it already, you just wasted 2 mana. Congratulations. So just keep that in mind.
Sure. That's what's going to be interesting. I mean, I keep reading this card or these cards and thinking, you adapt and then next turn you adapt again. It's like, wait, no, it doesn't work. It's just once. It's just this one-shot adapt. But I kind of feel like you're right. In a deck like the one that already exists as a precon on Arena,
right?
This fits right in. And
it does.
I mean, you could almost... I'm kind of thinking about the strategy of playing this card. I think on turn 2, I'd want to use the adapt because it's the free counter, right? Like you can do that one. You get the counter, you get the card, and then you can play your extra effects that are going to give it more counters and you can draw more cards. But yeah, I think this is an exciting card for that kind of deck. I don't know if it's going to make Merfolk tier 1 playable, but it certainly slots right into the deck either way.
I think the deck's good, but I don't see... I see some of them on the Mythic rank, but I honestly feel like once people hit Mythic, they kind of relax a little and start playing more fun decks, to be honest. Because you got there. You know what I mean? You got there, you're there. Now you can kind of experiment and play around.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like... I've lost to a couple of the Merfolk decks for sure. I'm trying to remember if I've felt like I had a good record against them. Mm-hmm. It's about even, They're pretty good. They're pretty good decks, and I think this card is going to just bump them up a level, So we'll see. Yeah,
for sure.
Obviously.
I like it.
What about your number 8?
My next card is Growth Chamber Guardian.
Okay.
Which might not be the kind of card you would expect to be on my list, but I think it's really cool. So it's a Grizzly Bear. It's a 2/2 for a green and 1. Creature, Elf Crab Warrior. It is a rare. It has Adapt 2 for a green and 2 more. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Growth Chamber Guardian, you may search your library for a card named Growth Chamber Guardian, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So I just love the idea of going turn 2, play this, turn 3, adapt. I have a 4/4. I'm going to search up another copy of this and swing in with a 4/4. Or I'm going to leave this guy back. Or you know what? Maybe I'll just attack with my 2/2 into your board. You going to block? Like,
right.
What do you want to do? Maybe I'll leave my mana up. And because that's the thing about adapt. It doesn't have to be activated as a sorcery, so you can do it whenever you want. You can leave your mana up, see what's going on at the end of your opponent's turn, then say, hey, guess what? I know what I'm playing next turn. I'm going to adapt, search up another Growth Chamber Guardian, put it on the board, and then it happens again. Like every copy, the next copy is going to adapt and get another copy. So this goes back to what was the card Llanowar Sentinel? I think that you used to play, going all the way back to Weatherlight.
Going all the way forward to current day, Vampire Conquistadors.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a long history of these kinds of cards, but the first one I remember is Llanowar Sentinel, and I think that was Weatherlight, right?
Yes, it was definitely Weatherlight.
And I mean, Squadron Hawk is kind of that family. It's a great ability to be able to just pull the next one out of your deck. And while you can't grab as many as you'd like, which would be 3 in the case of the first one, just being able to grab the next one and kind of chain them together. I just think it's pretty exciting, and it's a cool little beatdown card for 2 mana. I mean, 5 including the adapt, but I don't know. I just really like the design.
I like it too. I think it's a cool card. I'm just going to say that I wish that it had that you may have many copies of this card in your deck.
Why would you need to search for it? You could just draw it next turn because you're only playing.
Just keep doing it.
I mean, sure.
But that's just the one thing I think about. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so my number 7. For my number 7, I'm gonna get my Corona on. I don't mean I'm gonna drink though. Talking about the singer Corona, because it's just the rhythm of the wild. Oh yeah, it's just the rhythm of the. Okay, sorry. So my number 7 is Rhythm of the Wild.
I forgive you.
Don't. It's 1 green red. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. And now we're going to read the next card, Fires of Yavimaya. 1 green red. This is not a reprint. This is just a card I'm reading. Creatures you control have haste. Sacrifice. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Now, I'm not good enough at Magic Theory to say for certain which one of these cards is better. Having that sacrifice ability would be useful in Standard to protect a creature from like Fiery Cannonade, Golden Demise, Deafening Clarion. But Rhythm of the Wild is what we have. So we're going to talk about Rhythm of the Wild, right? So the creature spells can't be countered clause. Right now in Standard, I feel like that clause is practically irrelevant because no control deck plays Essence Scatter.
I do.
Not serious ones.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
But anyway, I think that once Quench is legal, this card will be a lot more relevant. Because right now, the way I play is if you have 2 mana up, I'm going to play creatures all day because you're not going to Essence Scatter me.
Syncopate.
But sometimes, but most of the time they don't have it, or they're saving their Syncopate for something else. If they do have it. But almost every time there's 2 mana up against me, creature spells resolve.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not really necessarily arguing with you. I'm more just saying, like, here's, from my perspective, playing a lot of control, I syncopate creatures on 2 all the time because I want value out of my syncopate, and I want to, that's kind of the point. Like, keep the creatures off the board for as long as possible while I build my board position, or build up my lands and then clear the board, that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. So Essence Scatter's in my deck. I think it's only 1 right now, but still, go ahead. Talk about Rhythm of the
Wild. But essentially all of the spells that counter creatures right now also counter this. Mm-hmm. So you got to worry about people countering the thing that keeps your creatures from being countered. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. So then anyway, the second part of it is creatures you control, or non-token creatures you control, gain Riot. Non-token creatures. Don't let your opponents get this by you. if you're playing in person. Don't let them give their token creatures Riot. It doesn't give them Riot. Riot triggers stack, by the way, and it's not like Adapt, where it's Adapt only if it has no counters. So a creature with Riot can get a counter and haste.
Yeah. Or double counters or double haste.
Exactly. Double. Yeah, don't ever do double haste.
It attacked last turn, too. It just came out.
Turbo haste.
Yeah.
So, there seems to be like a good green-red deck coming from this set based around this and some of the other new Gruul cards. I haven't really given much thought to what that deck might look like, but I'm definitely going to brew one, or at least wait for someone else to do it.
Yeah, I think Gruul is really terrifying. Like, I think it is. It looks like it could be so good, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Gruul as our lists go on. But this card, the thing is, the non-counterable clause there, I don't even think is what makes this card scary. It's the everything has Riot kind of part that makes it scary, because Riot is scary as far as, from the side of the control deck, where you're going, okay, cool, I cleared the board, I'm safe for a turn. It's like, no, you're not. Here comes, a bunch of guys that have haste now. Just the fact that you have the choice of making your creature haste or bigger, I just think that's really huge, and that's on several creatures already. So sure, Rhythm of the Wild might even be better in another deck that just splashes red and doesn't play a lot of Riot creatures. Mm-hmm. But it's great with the Riot creatures because, like you said, it stacks. So you just make your guys bigger and give them haste.
Right. And I was going to say this at the end of the show, but I'm going to say it right now. Do not reach for your dice before your Riot spell resolves, because you don't have to make that choice until the spell resolves. So if you're playing against someone who might have counter spells or might have a response to you casting that card, don't reach for your dice. Or do, if you want to bluff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you want people to think you're going to go for that counter and they don't have to worry about a haste creature, cast it and grab that die up. And then they go, okay, it resolves, and you put the die down and go haste swing. Yep. But it is important. You don't have to make that choice when you're casting the spell, only when it resolves as it's entering the battlefield.
Very good point.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, sorry. Your turn.
My next card is Skewer the Critics.
Okay.
This is a common sorcery. It's red and 2. Skewer the Critics deals 3 damage to any target, but it has Spectacle for 1 red, which is you may cast the spell for its Spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. So this can be a sorcery speed Lightning Bolt in a deck that can do a lot of damage. This card is really interesting because we already have Wizard's Lightning, which is a lightning bolt of sorts. It's 3 mana, but it can be 1 mana. And so this is a card that falls right into that category. In Standard, we're going to have decks running around with basically 8 lightning bolts. And mono red is already good. So I could totally see this just going into a mono red deck. You already mentioned, Fanatical Firebrand. You play that on turn 1. On turn 2, if they've not played a creature, you attack, and you can skewer them if you want. Or if they have played a creature, and you're like, well, I can't attack into their, Wild Growth Walker or whatever. I'm going to skewer it instead. I'll sacrifice my Fanatical Firebrand, hit you, and then skewer your Wild Growth Walker. That's just the first thing that came to mind right now. There's going to be tons of applications for this kind of thing. It's a lightning bolt. But
yeah,
I can totally see Modern Burn playing this card. In Modern Burn, the analog card to this would be Rift Bolt. And I think there's going to be a tension between both of these cards in terms of what do you want to make space for? Do you want to shave a Skull Crack or a Boros Charm or something to fit in Skewer the Critics? I kind of still think Rift Bolt is better because on turn 1, you can still suspend Rift Bolt.
Right.
You can't do anything with Skewer the Critics on turn 1 unless you, I guess, gut shot your opponent, but Modern Burn doesn't play gut shot. Right. But in the current iteration of Modern Burn, you do your damage on turn 1, but you don't have a mana left to spend. So that's going to make things a little trickier. I think I could see this making the Modern Burn decks for sure, but I'm curious to see how people fit it into the list, because the lists are pretty tight. And I know like Boros Charm is the first one or one of the cards that comes to mind, and Skullcrack. If you're playing 4 copies of Skullcrack, you can shave 1 or 2. I think Boros Charm is really good, but it doesn't hit creatures. This, you can hit creatures, and you can cast it for 1 mana, so maybe you shave a Boros Charm or 2. These are,
I feel like Boros Charm, if we're choosing between Boros Charm and Skullcrack, I would go Boros Charm just because I don't know. I feel like Skullcrack is so necessary, and you like.
Well, you play the other ones in the board for sure. I think you play 4 in your 75.
Okay.
But I think you may, because there's not a lot of life gain or damage prevention main deck very often in Modern.
There isn't? Okay, I'm not very familiar with Modern right now, so.
I mean, it's kind of, you don't really see that. You're going to see some decks have it, but generally you can kind of feel safe-ish on the front of, not somebody not dropping a Baneslayer Angel in game 1. So I think you can probably shave the Skullcracks from the main deck, but keep them in a board. I think that they're absolutely worth having 4 copies in the 75. But anyway, I think Skewer the Critics is going to see play in Modern Burn. Whether or not it sticks, maybe it doesn't stick around in the deck. That's what I'm saying. But maybe it doesn't work out. But I feel like people are going to try it, and definitely. I think that's kind of how they're going to do it. And in Standard, again, 8 bolt. I could totally see that in the current mono red deck. So it's an exciting card. The thing to remember about this, it's a sorcery.
Yes.
Part of what I was thinking about was, wow, it's going to be incredible in Modern. They crack a fetch land, I'm going to bolt them. And I'm like, wait, they're going to crack their fetch land at the end of my turn when I can't cast a sorcery or, during their turn. It's just, so that's not going to work out as often as I wanted it to. I was thinking of it kind of like Shadow of Doubt, which is, card from, I think, the original Ravnica. It was a blue-black hybrid.
Yes.
And it's players can't search libraries this turn, draw a card. And you would get people because they would crack their fetch, and you'd go, in response, I'll Shadow of Doubt. Now you can't search your library, and I draw a card. So it was like a Stone Rain kind of thing. And I was like, wow, this kind of fits in with that. But since this is a sorcery, it doesn't quite work out that way. So keep that in mind. It can't be just kind of cast in response to somebody fetching or anything like that.
Or playing Shockland, which is relevant
exactly.
Standard.
For sure.
So, yeah, my thoughts are surprisingly composed for this card, which, spoiler warning. I had my doubts about this card, or about Burn. I had my doubts that Burn was still going to be a viable deck after Ravnica Allegiance comes out, thanks to cards like Absorb, Angel of Grace, something like 20 more sweepers being entered into the format. Like, seriously, how many different sweepers does Standard need? Give me a friggin' break. But this card gives me hope. At worst, it's a sorcery speed Wizard's Lightning, and at best, it's a Lava Spike without targeting restrictions. Best of all, it's a redundant 3 damage burn spell in a deck that really, really wants them. Like you said, it could probably make the jump to Modern. Question is the same as it is in Standard. What do you cut for it? We answered that, I think, for Modern, or at least we got an idea. For my personal deck, my deck runs 1 Banefire and 1 Lava Coil, and that would be the most obvious place to slot into since they're both sorcery speed. It doesn't change the speed of the deck. I'd maybe shave a Shock and maybe shave a Risk Factor to fit in the other 2, but I really like Risk Factor with the Spectacle cards. Because they take the 4 damage 90% of the time. And then you can use that last mana. If you have 4 mana up, you can use that last mana to really punish them. Yep. Now, the problem when you have... that's the other thing, is like the problem with Standard a lot of times with the red deck is that you'll have an empty board, you'll have 4 mana, you'll have a Goblin Chain Whirler, and you'll have a Wizard's Lightning in your hand. And you're like, I can only cast one or the other. Well, you still might have that problem, but sometimes the Wizard's Lightning will be Skewer the Critics, and it will be glorious.
I love it. Yeah. The other thing is how not only does Vioshino Pyromancer?
Yes.
Allow you to cast Wizard's Lightning for 1, but you cast your Pyromancer, hit them for 2, and then cast Skewer the Critics for 1.
Beautiful.
So it works. You don't cut those out of your deck.
Nope, not at all. Oh no, don't ever cut those. They're awesome. They're so good. So, so my number 6 is Light Up the Stage. This card's pretty amazing. Light Up the Stage is a card that does things. It is red and 2. It's a sorcery. It's an uncommon. Has Spectacle of 1 red. and you exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So Mike Flores, in his article, The 26 Rules for Dating My Mono Red Deck or something, made the rare correction, and I'm not saying rare correction because he's stubborn, although he is stubborn, but it's simply because the master is rarely wrong about this card. He corrected because he thought it was until end of turn and he didn't think it was that great. But this is until the end of your next turn, not the end of turn. So you can deal some damage, pay a red, exile 2 cards, and then play them on your next turn.
Yep.
I'm not certain I like this more than Risk Factor. But again, same thing with Risk Factor. They take the 4, and then you pay a red, and you get 2 cards anyway. Would I pay 2 red for sorcery, deal 4 damage to a player, draw 2? Probably. I'm firmly, just for the record, I'm firmly in the Risk Factor camp versus Experimental Frenzy for the red deck. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people like both, or a lot of people like Experimental Frenzy, but I like Risk Factor because it's pretty much always does what you want it to if you play it right. And Frenzy is just too unpredictable for me. Some people might like this card with Frenzy, but sitting on top of your deck with an empty board, it costs 3, and I'm not sure I like it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this card's great. I mean, it's a red version of Divination in a way, and any blue deck would pay 1 blue to draw 2 cards. This is kind of an upside that the blue decks don't get in terms of being able to draw 2 cards for 1 mana. I love the design of the card for the color red, like the idea that this is basically, red card draw, and it feels very red. And it almost made my list. I do like it, and I kind of I'm excited to try it and see how it feels like actually playing with it. Because spoiler, I do play mono red sometimes on Arena. But nice. So let's see. Next card on my list, Angel of Grace. Yeah. Angel of Grace is a 5/4 flash flying creature. It's an angel. It's a mythic rare, and it costs 5 mana. It's 2 white and 3 more. When Angel of Grace enters the battlefield until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. So that's pretty good already. You have a 5/4 flash flying angel, so you've got a threat that's basically haste. If you cast it at the end of your opponent's turn, you kind of flash it in and then untap and attack. So you get that extra ability in terms of, hey, you thought you had me dead. I'll flash in an angel. I might block one of your small guys and still live through the turn. The additional ability on it is 4 white, so 6 mana. Exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard. Your life total becomes 10. This card is just, I feel like it's so powerful. It's a threat and it's an answer at the same time. If they kill it, you let it sit around in your graveyard until your life total is a little low, and then you make your life total 10. So you can do that at any point. There's no timing restriction on that. And I don't know how many times I've gone in a blue-white control deck. Now, I don't know if that's where this is going to see play, but I could certainly see it as a sideboard card in like a blue-white or an Esper control deck. But I don't know how many times I've kind of gotten behind because of my mana or whatever cards I drew. You get behind on board, you eventually clear the board, but you're at like 3 and you're going, I'm like walking on eggshells. I really hope I, can dig back into this. An Angel of Grace, even if you don't cast it, you just surveil it into the graveyard. You can just make your life total 10 and put a whole bunch more padding between your opponent and the end of the game. So I just think this card is, I don't know, it's really, really powerful.
Here's what I have to say about it. Can you hear me rolling my eyes?
You think it's that bad?
I hate it. The only thing I'm going to say, and we're just going to move on, unban Rampaging Ferocidon.
I would like to see that. I kind of want to see that, how that would work in Standard.
That's all I'm saying, because it says players can't gain life, and a change of life total counts as gaining life. So
does it?
Yes.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
So if your player's life total becomes 10, it's essentially, if you're at 1, gain 9 life.
Interesting.
So
okay.
The ability would be shut off by Ferocidon.
Yeah, that isn't something that I even realized because it doesn't say gain X life. It just
Right.
says your life total becomes 10.
But it does count as a gain of life, unless you're 14 or something.
Sure. I'm going to dome myself.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a cool card, but
it's an awesome card. It's an amazing card.
Why you're rallying behind the Ferocidon, so.
I hate it. So, can we move on to a card I like?
Yes.
Oh my god. So, my number 5 is Persistent Petitioners. So, this card is so great. Persistent Petitioners is a blue and 1. This is the kind of card Noyan would love. It's a 1/3 creature human advisor. Tap 1 and tap it. It's a common, by the way. Tap 1 and tap it. Target player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Tap 4 untapped advisors you control. Target player puts the top 12 cards of their library into their graveyard. Final clause, a deck can have any number of cards named Persistent Petitioners. So I just love the flavor of this card so much. As a former canvasser, I know that most flyers end up in the bin. So... like, here, take a flyer, trash can. Here, take a flyer, trash can. Group of them. Here, take 12 flyers, trash can. I love it. So, at first, I was excited for this card just for limited to try and force a mill deck. But then I saw that Relentless Rats clause, and now I'm convinced that this could be a standard deck. I don't actually know what other mill cards are in standard currently, and you know me with mill decks. I love this kind of crap. But I feel like you start with 26 Petitioners, 4 Dive Down, 4 Spell Pierce, 4 Negate, 22 Islands, protect the Petitioners at all costs. I don't know if it's good, but I'm going to stream it 100%. I'm going to stream this deck. And by the way, me and Joey weren't sure how cards that break the rule of 4 work in Arena, but I figured it out. It looks like if you have 4 copies of the card in your collection, you have as many copies as you want.
Oh, that's cool.
So I stopped adding rats colonies at 27. When I was just clicking the card, and it didn't waste. I kept checking to make sure I wasn't burning wild cards doing it. I stopped at 27, and I'm sure I didn't draft that many. You know,
right.
So also they break that rule in Commander. But what would you play with Persistent Petitioners in Commander? The second ability on it's for advisors, not just petitioners. In Standard, the only advisor in Standard is Teysa Karlov, and that's coming out with Ravnica Allegiance. Mm-hmm. But here's my list of the top 10 advisors in Magic history. Number 10.
You did say you had a lot of lists, and you do.
I did. Did I tear that list up? I think I actually tore that list up. Oh, I did. Okay, so here. Number 10, Trusted Advisor. Number 9, Michiko Konda. Number 8, Ib Halfheart. Number 7, Masako the Humorless. Number 6, Mayor of Averbrook. Number 5, Cartel Aristocrat. Number 4, Loyal Retainers. Number 3, Leovold, whatever Leovold is. Number 2, Gaddock Teague. And number 1, Imperial Recruiter. That's my list of advisors across Magic history. So... and slops to the most useless advisor in Magic history, Zuo C the Mocking Sage. It's a green 1. It's a human advisor. It has hexproof, and Zuo the Mocking Sage can't be blocked by creatures with horsemanship. 1/2 power toughness. All right, let's move right on.
That's awesome. So Persistent Petitioners, you kind of said it all. I saw this card and immediately thought of you, and I just think it's hilarious. So I'm not going to say any more about it.
I'm going to stream it. I'm going to
see what you do with it. I think more than you know, I think there are going to be a lot of people playing with this card because it just seems so funny.
Dude,
it's just great.
It survives Cannonade. I'm always thinking about these things. It survives Golden Demise, and then if you just hold up your mana to Spell Pierce on Negate or any of the real sweepers, there you go. You know? And then there's more you can do, but I don't even want to get into it right now. We'll talk about it another time.
Yeah,
So,
after you've actually built the deck and have been playing it, we'll talk about it.
but we have an alternate plan too. Me and Ryan Gurmore have worked out an alternate plan in case they try to in case they make themselves untargetable. But we'll get into that another time.
Okay.
What's your next card?
Next card is Tithe Taker, which is a rare.
Which number is that on your list?
It is my number 4.
It's my number 4 too.
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah, we matched one.
Did it? Yeah. All right. Well, then we have to alternate words.
Okay. You ready?
Tithe
Taker
is creature
type.
You're supposed to say human.
Oh, human
Soldier.
4
1
white
and
1
color. All right, let's stop. This is terrible. Okay. So Tithe Taker is a creature human soldier. It is a 2/1. It costs a white and 1 more. It's a rare. During your turn, spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast, and abilities your opponents activate cost 1 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. And it has Afterlife, which is when it dies, you get a 1/1 white flyer. 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. So this is what we were talking about with all the doomed travelers in this set, the Afterlife mechanic. But these kind of creatures, first of all, I love the art. I don't know. I think it just looks cool.
It is great art. It's classic.
It's going to see play in Eternal formats. It's, the first thing that comes to mind is something like Thalia, because it has such a similar ability. This one only applies during your opponent's turn, so that matters. It's not as powerful in that sense, but just being able to tax your opponent during your turn. I don't know how many times I've sat across the table, because I always want to be playing on my opponent's turn,
Right.
that I'm like, trying to carefully manage my lands and my mana to make sure I have enough to cast the things I want to cast. So, hey, turn 4, end of turn Chemister's Insight. Well, that's not happening with Tithe Taker on the board.
Right.
that's my turn 4. That's usually the first proactive move I usually make in a game, is I'm sitting there trying to keep, things tidy, until I can cast, until the end of your turn, after I've got 4 mana in play to cast Chemister's Insight. And that kind of gets the ball rolling. Try to cast a Teferi the next turn, and, that kind of thing. So I really think that, that this card is going to see a lot of play in Standard, and I think it's going to see play in older formats as well.
Definitely. So as the mono white player, or playing mono white, or playing any creature heavy deck, or a deck that turns creatures sideways to win in Standard today, you always need to play around Settle the Wreckage. It's probably my least favorite card ever printed, honestly. I think it's a total feel bad, because, creatures die, at least sometimes you get abilities. But with Settle, they're just gone, and it just ruins everything. So when my opponent has white XX up, and I have a pretty good board, I'll always cast my most counterable spell in my hand to open up an attack. Like, if I see you got 4 mana up and I got like 3 creatures on board, I'm going to cast my Ajani. I'm going to cast my my History of Benalia. I'm going to cast something that you have to counter, or it's going to be bad for you, because I want you to not have 4 mana on the board. And this is just the perfect card in that role. They have to counter this, or they can't cast Settle the Wreckage when they have 4 mana up. They're going to have to keep 5 up to be able to cast Settle. Now, as far as like for my deck in the 2-drop spot, I still think Adonto Vanguard is correct, because the card is so good against control. But maybe this right now I'm running Knight of Grace as my other 2-drop, and I think I'm running 3 of them. Maybe this replaces Knight of Grace as my other 2-drop creature for best of 1. But it's definitely a 4 of sideboard card for best of 3, and maybe a 4 of main deck card. I mean, again, we'll see the numbers as it shakes out. But I love this card so much. I'm so excited to jam this. And that's the thing. Like, remember earlier when I said I don't know if any of the Afterlife cards are going to be good in Standard?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even care that this has Afterlife. The fact that it does is awesome. It is irrelevant to me. All I care about is that first ability.
Yeah, I agree. That's just kind of icing on the cake. So I think we're going to see a lot of Tithe Taker, unfortunately for me.
Yes.
Okay, so the next card on my list, another one I think we're going to see a lot of, unfortunately for me, is Gruul Spellbreaker.
It's my number 3.
Awesome, we did it again.
Nice. That's great.
So, Gruul Spellbreaker, if you haven't seen it, this was one of the earliest cards revealed. This is the first card I think that we saw that had Riot. It is a creature for a green, a red, and 1. It's a 3/3. It has Riot. It has Trample. And as long as it's your turn, you and Gruul Spellbreaker have hexproof. This kind of same thing applies where we were talking about Settle the Wreckage a minute ago. This card is like, you can't cast Settle the Wreckage.
Yes! It's my entire top 10 is based on.
It's a scary card, and this kind of this list that I've made obviously includes a lot of cards that go against what I normally play, but I think part of the reason they're making the list, I think cards are good because either I'm excited to play them or I'm terrified of them.
Right,
this falls into the second camp for sure, because being able to just land a 4/4 for 3 mana with 4/4 Trampler, like that's a threat I have to deal with. I can't deal with it on your turn, and like because you have hexproof, and so does this. So I can't settle you. I can't seal away. I can seal away on my turn after you've attacked with it already. And if you want, you give it haste right away. You have a 3/3 attacker, and you're getting in for 3. Right away. And again, I can't cast seal away. I can have open mana, but I can't cast seal away.
Yep.
So this card is terrifying.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that if a green-red aggro deck's going to be successful, this card's the reason.
Yes.
I'd honestly like this card without the Riot ability, but the counter can take it out of Deafening Clarion range, although any of the Destroy All Creature sweepers do hit it, This card is actually, at first, so this card is better than Shalai Voice of Plenty at giving you hexproof, and I actually realized when I was writing this why I don't have any Shalai, because it's a rare. And I actually wrote isn't as good as Shalai at first, but with Shalai all you have to do is remove Shalai somehow, but you can't remove Spellbreaker on its controller's turn, so you can't really do anything about not being able to cast Settle the Wreckage. You know what I mean? Like at least you can get rid of Shalai and then cast Settle.
Right.
Where with this, you can't get rid of this, and you can't target me, so there's really no way around it. So That's kind of like where I'm like, okay, all right, this is actually better than Shalai in terms of like turning off Settle the Wreckage or turning off your opponent's doming you on your turn.
Yeah.
So that's really all I got about that card.
Cool. You want to go next and say whatever card that...
Yes, I do. Okay. My number 2 is Skewer the Critics. Your turn.
Oh, great. That was good. Okay. All right, my number 2, and we already know my number 1. So my number 2, this is probably the card I'm most excited about outside of Hallowed Fountain.
Yes.
Precognitive Perception.
Really? I don't even know what that card is. I'm going to tear my lists up.
I'll just tell you. So Precognitive Perception is a rare. It is blue, and 3, so it's 5 mana. For an instant, draw 3 cards. That right there is Jace's Ingenuity, which saw print and saw play back in, 2011-ish, 2012. Right. Addendum, if you cast the spell during your main phase, instead scry 3, then draw 3 cards. And that's what makes this card, I think, so incredibly powerful. It's kind of like a mini dig through time, right? Dig through time was look at the top 7, put 2 of them in your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. This is look at the top 3, scry 3, and then draw 3. It's kind of comes out in a similar way. Like, of course, the most cards you're going to see are 6. But it has the same feel. Like, it feels very powerful. You're going to get the best 3 cards, or at least the ones that you want the most out of your top 6. If you want to dig that deep. I mean, that's kind of the way it ends up. Now, you have to cast it during your main phase, which is a hard thing to do, I think, for a control deck or a deck that would want to run this. But and there is competition at 5 with Teferi. So I can see this being maybe like a 2 to 3 of to start with. I'm going to try 2 to start with and see how that goes. But it's definitely a player in Standard, and I'm excited to draw cards after scrying.
It doesn't seem exciting to me, but that's probably because it's a really good card, and I'm not good at Magic. Because most of the cards where I go, I don't really know, they wind up being like the cards I hate the most. I'm like, oh, I can't believe you just cast that 5 mana spell and drew 3 again.
Well, it's not exciting. At least it's certainly not exciting from across the table because your opponent's going, looking at their top 3 and scrying them and then drawing 3 cards. But I can see what you mean where it doesn't feel as powerful as it is, but being able to scry 3, then draw 3 just feels, it's not dig through time, but that card still pops into my head when I see this. I don't want to make any grand declarations that this card is as good as or that comparable to a card that was banned, but
right.
it feels similar. You're not going to cast this for 2 mana. Yeah, you're not going to delve this.
And anytime you cast 5, anytime you tap 5 on your main phase and you don't play a Teferi, I get happier.
So, well, maybe this will be something else you'll be sad about to see someone tap 5 on their main phase.
Remains to be seen. So I'll tell you one thing that I'm excited to tap 5 for.
All right.
My number 1 card, Electro Dominance.
Yeah.
My number 1. Are you surprised? Probably not. So one of the hallmarks of a broken card is the card breaks the rules. And according to George W. Bush, most of our imports come from other countries. Or at least according to Robin Williams' impersonation of George W. Bush, R.I.P. This card lets you cast sorceries or creatures at instant speed and for free, essentially, because you've tapped. So let's say you tap. Okay, anyway, I'll just keep getting on with this. So I think that printing this at instant was a mistake.
You want to read what it does?
Yes. Electro Dominance does things and stuff for free. Electro Dominance is 2 red and X. It's a rare. It's an instant. It deals X damage to any target. You may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So, like I said, I think that printing this at instant was a mistake. And not even for the reasons that I'm excited about. I think the reasons that I'm excited for it are totally fair. But everyone else is ready to cast those time spiral freeze spells with this. Like Wheel of Fate...
Ancestral Vision, Living End. Hypergenesis.
Yeah, but don't get too excited because I think this card's going to be banned from week 1 of Modern. But I could be wrong. I just don't think just paying 2 mana to cast, 2 red to be able to cast Living End at instant speed, that's not going to happen. Sorry, y'all. Sorry to disappoint you. But really, all I want to do is I want to end a turn this for 3 on a Drake and then drop a Chain Whirler to finish it off. That's all I want to do with this card.
It's a combo.
Yeah, really. But and from what I said before about replacing the Banefire with the Skewer the Critics, I actually think this replaces the 1x Banefire in my red deck. I'm not sure I'd run more than 2, but ultimately I'll run as many of these as the good players decide I should run.
Right.
So if there winds up being a deck with 4 of these, okay, we'll run 4. But this card's just, what the hell? Like just being able to hit something and then drop a free creature, like what?
Yeah, so the thing that I think that's the way to, or one way of thinking about this card is you're still casting whatever card was in your hand, but you get to ignore timing restrictions and you get to do X damage. So it's kind of like, but you just pay, for 2 extra red, you get to do X damage when you cast your Chain Whirler or something, but you can cast it at instant speed. I know it's kind of a weird way of thinking about it, but that's kind of like you still have to have that card in your hand. You're still casting 2 cards. It's almost like the damage is the bonus. So, that's, I don't know if that really helps in terms of how to look at it, but I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around how to use this card and what are the, maybe it's, are we looking at it and going, oh my gosh, without really thinking about how this has to play out? Like you need the Chain Whirler in your hand. And
true. That's why I don't think you run 4 of these, because having a hand with 2 Electro Dominants is kind of crap. So.
Yeah, right. Like you don't want you need the card in your hand that you want to cast. And if you have that card already, you can cast it. Like Electro Dominance is kind of like a funny version of Quicken, which is like, give this spell instant, draw a card. Well, now give this spell instant, do X damage. Like, or give this spell instant. What the heck? What kind of weird rules text is that? Give a creature flash the next, whatever Quicken says.
I know what you mean. So, but
hold on. Quicken It costs a blue and it's an instant. The next sorcery card you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash. Draw a card. Just to clarify there. So you're basically allowing yourself to break the timing restriction, and instead of draw a card, you get to deal damage. Right? Like, is that basically how it comes out?
Totally.
It also ignores colors, right? Because you can cast any color card.
Right. And you can cast a Chain Whirler even if you tap this for 6.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So if you do X equals 6, you can deal 6 damage and you still can cast a 3-mana spell.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exact. And you can also just cast this for 6 if you're sitting there top decking a bunch of lands, and then you top deck this, you go, oh, snap. Blah, damage, you know? So that's good. There's a lot. It's a cool card. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and wrap up here. I have a couple just very quick notes about Ravnica Allegiance for the pre-release this weekend. Don't look at the art on Screaming Shield. Scratch it out if you get the card because it's terrifying. They named a card after my girlfriend, which I'm very excited about. This Mesmerizing Behind or whatever it is. Pretty excited about that. Thrash Threat and Titanic Brawl are both fight style effects. Thrash just does the damage, though. It's not a fight. And Titanic Brawl is a fight card, and they're both instant speed.
Wait,
very good to note.
Threat isn't an instant speed. You're talking about Thrash and...
Thrash is instant speed.
Okay.
I'm saying they're both fight effects at instant speed, which is hard to come by. So it's pretty good. It can really mess with combat. We don't care about Commander, but John Medina does, and he did a whole article about a Prime Speaker Vannifar deck, and you should check it out over at Cool Stuff Inc. And also, the last thing I want to say is Sharktocrab. I just wanted to say it on the podcast. I got it out.
You did.
I got 3 of your 10 right. My guess to your list was number 1, Absorb, number 2, Quench, number 3, Angel of Grace, number 4, Frilled Mystic, number 5, Kaya's Wrath, number 6, Warrant Warden, number 7, Deputy of Detention, number 8, Mesmerizing Behind, number 9, Sphinx of 4, I don't know what that is, and number 10, Drill Bit. But apparently I got a lot of those wrong. But again, like I said, I only used cards that weren't on my list, which we had a couple that matched up, so that was pretty good.
And a lot of those were in my initial run-through, so you weren't far off. They just didn't make the final cut. So
For sure.
But anyway,
you had a couple surprises there for me. So
Yeah, and I was trying to kind of give a mix of exciting cards through all the colors, so because they're exciting cards, not just the things that I plan to play with.
Right.
So anyway, we will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at YMTGTaps. Joe is at bigheadjoe, and I'm at Affinity for Blue. Subscribe on all the platforms, and
follow our Twitch stream.
That's right.
YMTG Tilts. It's still in its infancy, but I've just been jamming games on there when I have a chance, and I want to try to do it a little more seriously, but I'm just messing with it now for fun. But you should subscribe and watch me lose at Standard.
Yeah, sounds like fun. It has been fun watching you lose at Standard. Actually, you don't lose that often, but yeah, it's been fun. Anyway, until next time, we are YoMTG Taps.
Stop bitching, start brewing.